My friends, we are living in times of great uncertainty, when the headlines are filled with tension, when the sound of conflict echoes louder than the voices of peace, and when the hearts of many are gripped by fear. Across nations and borders, eyes are turning toward the Middle East once again. The world watches, breath held, as we ask, what do we know about Israel's attacks on Iran's nuclear sites? But today, I will not give you a political analysis. I will not stand behind a podium of governments or opinions. I stand before you with a message not of war, but of wakefulness, not of conflict, but of calling. Because behind every battle in this world, there is a deeper battle raging in the human soul. The battle between fear and faith, between despair and hope, between hatred and love. Yes, we've seen report. Secret missions, silent strikes, saboteurs in the night. We've seen facilities shaken, operations disrupted, tensions rising like smoke into the air. But let me tell you something deeper. These are not just acts of nations. These are signs of a world that has lost its way. These are the groanings of a broken creation, still searching for peace in the wrong places. You see, mankind has learned how to split the atom, how to launch missiles across oceans, how to penetrate bunkers with stealth and precision. But in all our advancements, we have yet to master the heart. We can destroy a facility, but not erase hatred. We can delay a program, but not stop the cycle of vengeance. We can cripple an enemy's power, but cannot build trust with force. And so the question becomes not just what is happening in Iran, or what is Israel doing. The question must become, what are we doing? What are you doing? Are you letting the fear of the world drive your decisions, or are you rooted in a truth that no war can shake? The weapons of this world may be forged in steel and uranium, but the true weapons, the ones that can rebuild families, reshape nations, and renew hearts are found in love, truth, and righteousness. And those weapons are available to every man and woman, regardless of their background, their passport, or their politics. I tell you today, this is not the hour to look away or remain indifferent. This is the hour to fall to our knees, to pray for peace that begins in the heart, to plead for wisdom, not just for leaders in Tel Aviv or Tehran, but for the leaders in our homes, in our schools, and in our own minds. Let us not become numb to the suffering. Let us not become spectators in the grand theater of global conflict. Because whether the fire burns in the deserts of Persia or the hills of Samaria, it is a reflection of the fire that burns within every human soul. A longing for security, a cry for justice, a need for something greater than ourselves, and here is the good news that something greater is not far from us. Peace is not a myth, it is not a political treaty, it is not signed on paper alone, it is written on hearts. It begins when we choose compassion over revenge, courage over silence, and hope over despair. So I urge you, do not be disheartened by the rumblings of war. Be stirred to action, not to pick up a weapon, but to pick up your calling. Be a peacemaker in your own world. Speak truth where there is deception. Extend grace where there is bitterness. And remember that while men may plot in darkness, the light still shines. Yes, nations may rise and fall. Yes, alliances may shift and history may repeat. But the power of love, the purpose of peace, and the promise of redemption remain unshaken. That is where our eyes must turn, not to the next target on a map, but to the eternal truth that transcends all borders. So let us walk with courage. Let us speak with conviction. Let us live not as children of fear, but as messengers of hope. Because the world does not need more fear, mongering. It needs firebrands of peace, people like you, standing in the storm, declaring that no matter what shakes the earth, our hope is secure. When we look at the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran, especially concerning nuclear sites and the actions taken in the shadows of global diplomacy, we must understand that these are not just political or military maneuvers. They are manifestations of something much deeper, a spiritual conflict that has existed since the dawn of humanity. Behind the strategies, the headlines, the intelligence reports, and even the battlefield, there is a struggle not just over land, power, or sovereignty, but over the soul of mankind. At the heart of it, every conflict reveals something about human nature. We see the thirst for control, the desire for safety, the fear of annihilation, and the instinct to retaliate before being wounded. But more profoundly, we see a deeper unrest that technology cannot fix, borders cannot erase, and politics cannot resolve. It is the unrest of the human heart. It is the brokenness we all carry within us, the tendency to protect ourselves at all costs, even when it means inflicting pain on others. The need to win, to dominate, to be right. These tendencies do not originate in governments. They originate in us. That is why this moment in history is not just an opportunity to evaluate global affairs, but to evaluate ourselves. How easily we condemn the decisions of nations, but how slowly we address the conflicts within our own souls. The envy, the pride, the bitterness, the prejudice. These are the seeds of war, planted in the human heart long before they bloom in nations. If we truly desire peace in the world, we must first pursue peace within. Because the nations that go to war are simply collections of individuals acting out the very same battles we have failed to resolve on a personal level. And so, what we witness between Israel and Iran is more than strategy. It is a mirror showing us that humanity still wrestles with its deepest demons. Fear drives decisions. Distrust breeds isolation. History's wounds remain open because healing takes more than silence. It takes humility, courage, and a kind of forgiveness that cannot be forced by power. There is also a danger in becoming too familiar with the language of conflict. When airstrikes and sabotage become everyday news, we risk becoming desensitized. We stop asking the deeper questions: what leads people to hate? Why is reconciliation so rare? Where is the hope? The danger is not just in what nations are doing, but in how easily we accept it as the way things must be. Yet, this is precisely where faith and conviction are most needed, not in times of peace, but in moments of crisis. This is where we must remember that the highest wars are not won with weapons, but with wisdom. The greatest victories are not in destroying an enemy, but in transforming a heart. It takes more strength to lay down bitterness than to pick up arms. It takes more courage to believe in redemption than to prepare for revenge. The truth is, the world will never know lasting peace until the human heart is changed. Laws and borders may be drawn and redrawn, but until love replaces fear, until humility replaces pride, until forgiveness replaces hatred, wars will continue in different forms and names. What we see in the Middle East is just one chapter in a very old story. But the good news is that each of us is called to write a new chapter, not by changing nations, but by first allowing truth and light to reign in our own lives. The deeper war is not over uranium or military dominance. It is over the heart of humanity. And the battleground is not just Iran or Israel. It is every city, every home, every soul. That is where real peace begins. That is where the real victory is found. In every generation, humanity advances in knowledge. We discover new ways to harness power, to extend our reach, to strengthen our defenses. We can send machines to space, unlock the genome, split atoms, and monitor entire nations from the sky. We have the tools to cripple an enemy without ever setting foot on their soil. And yet, for all this brilliance, for all this progress, there remains a staggering truth. We have not yet learned to build lasting peace. We have learned how to break things, how to dismantle structures and silence enemies, but not how to heal hearts, build trust, or stop the cycle of vengeance that runs deep through history. Israel's targeted strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities are a prime example of this dynamic. Precision attacks, careful planning, intelligence coordination. all aimed at halting a program believed to pose a grave threat. On a surface level, one could argue it's a necessary move for national security. But beneath that surface, a more sobering question remains. Does disabling infrastructure ever truly disarm hostility? Can a missile reach into a man's heart and remove hatred? Can a covert operation extinguish generations of fear, pride, and pain? Technology gives us reach, but not reconciliation. We can monitor nuclear sites with satellites, but we cannot measure the bitterness that grows in the hearts of men. We can program drones to fly with surgical precision, but we cannot automate forgiveness. The tools of modern power are incredible, but they are also incomplete. They are effective at suppression, but powerless when it comes to transformation. It's a sobering thought that the things we are most proud of, our most advanced inventions, may be incapable of solving our most ancient problems. Peace is not a technological achievement. It is a human one. It does not arrive through scientific breakthroughs, but through moral ones. We can change the world with machines, but we cannot save it unless we also change ourselves. For many, the idea that such conflicts could be solved without force seems naive. After all, when nations threaten each other, when ideologies clash, when history drips with blood, how can anyone talk about love or trust or reconciliation? But that question reveals exactly where our weakness lies. It shows how deeply we have come to believe in the myth that force is the final answer. And yet history keeps showing us that force may change circumstances, but it rarely changes hearts. True peace must be cultivated, not imposed. It must be chosen, not demanded. There is also a cost to this dependence on power. The more we rely on it, the more we neglect the virtues that make power righteous: justice, humility, empathy, and mercy. When power becomes the goal instead of the tool, even the most well-intentioned actions can leave behind unintended devastation. Every weapon fired, every facility destroyed, leaves more than rubble. It leaves a story. It leaves another generation growing up in fear, inheriting the anger of their fathers, mistrusting the intentions of their neighbors. That is why, even as we understand the strategies nations use to defend themselves, we must not lose sight of the higher strategy, the strategy of peace, the strategy of patient understanding, the strategy of dialogue, of forgiveness, of grace. These are not weak ideals. They are the strongest of all, because they do what no bomb can ever do: they heal. This is not to deny the reality of danger. It is not to pretend that evil does not exist or that threats are not real. But it is to say that the tools we've developed to manage those threats must be guided by something greater than fear. They must be guided by moral vision, by the understanding that our greatest power is not in what we can destroy, but in what we can restore. Let us remember, then, that while we may know how to interrupt a nuclear program, the deeper challenge remains. Can we interrupt the hatred? Can we stop the cycle? Can we love when we have every reason to strike? Until we can answer those questions with courage, all our progress remains fragile, all our power temporary. The hope of peace will never be found in stronger weapons. It will be found in stronger hearts, hearts willing to choose a better way. When the world watches the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, it often looks toward government chambers, military councils, and diplomatic negotiations for answers. Leaders gather, intelligence is assessed, policies are formed, and strategies unfold. But there is a timeless truth that the world often forgets. Peace does not begin in the halls of power. It begins in the heart of the individual. You see, we tend to believe that peace is something others must deliver to us, something signed in treaties or enforced by armies. But that belief misses the point entirely. The most powerful peace in history has never come from the top down. It has always come from the inside out. Peace is not first a political product. It is a personal decision, a quiet choice made by one soul, then another and another, until families, communities, and even nations are transformed. When we talk about Israel and Iran, we are not just speaking of two countries. We are speaking of two histories, two peoples, two pain-filled narratives. And behind every headline, there are human beings, mothers trying to raise children in safety, young people wondering if they'll see tomorrow, elderly men and women praying that peace will come before they close their eyes. These people do not sit in power. They do not shape policy, but they carry the weight of its consequences, and they too have the ability to shape the world in ways that politicians cannot. Imagine if more people, ordinary people, chose the path of compassion over judgment, of listening over shouting, of forgiveness over revenge. Imagine what might happen if in the middle of fear, someone reached across the divide not with a clenched fist, but with an open hand. That is where peace starts, in the hidden places, in the unseen moments, in the daily decisions we make to either spread light or add to the darkness. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of justice, truth, and mercy in the human spirit. It is the quiet refusal to give in to hate. It is the determination to believe that every person, no matter their nationality or background, is worthy of dignity. This kind of peace is not passive, it is bold. It dares to love when others demand vengeance. It dares to believe in reconciliation even when history screams otherwise, and make no mistake, this kind of peace has power. It might not look powerful in a world that measures strength by weapons and wealth, but it changes everything, because peace that begins in the heart spreads. It moves through conversations, it influences families, it reshapes entire cultures. It is the kind of peace that cannot be bombed, sabotaged, or sanctioned. It does not depend on a ceasefire. It creates the condition in which a ceasefire becomes possible. When a parent teaches their child to value life regardless of borders, that is peace. When a young person refuses to let bitterness define them, that is peace. When a neighbor forgives another even when it costs them something, that is peace. These moments may never make the news, but they are the soil from which true peace grows. So we need to ask ourselves, are we bringing peace into our own lives? Are we creating understanding or causing division? Are we showing kindness or adding to fear and mistrust? The truth is, the world gives back what we put into it. If we share hope, hope will come back to us. But if we spread doubt and despair, we'll see more of that too. Let us never underestimate the power of the individual. Let us not believe the lie that we are too small to make a difference. The course of nations has often turned on the courage of one person. And today, that person could be you. Let this be the generation that understands that while governments may build treaties, it is people who build peace, and it starts now. Not tomorrow, not when the conflict is over, but today, wherever you are. Let peace begin in you, and you will find that the world around you starts to change, one heart at a time. In a world filled with uncertainty, war, and the rising tide of division, it becomes easy to feel overwhelmed. The news flashes with images of conflict, missiles launched, threats exchanged, alliances tested, and the heart grows heavy with questions. What will come next? Will peace ever return? Is there any hope left in this storm? But in these very moments, when fear tries to take root in our souls, we are called to remember who we are. We are not simply watchers of the world's pain. We are carriers of light, beacons of hope in times of darkness. The situation between Israel and Iran, with all its complexity and intensity, reminds us not just of political tension, but of a deeper responsibility. It reminds us that the world does not need more cynics. It does not need more spectators nodding in resignation. It needs people, ordinary people, who choose hope over despair and courage over fear. It needs individuals who, though they may not sit in presidential palaces or war rooms, still understand the power of their voice, their actions, their convictions. You see, the world has always been shaped by those who refused to accept destruction as destiny, those who believed that goodness could rise from the rubble, that peace could be spoken into chaos, that love could still triumph. even when hatred seemed to have the louder voice, and today that baton is in our hands. We are the ones standing in the storm. We are the ones being called to bring calm, not by denying the pain, but by facing it with boldness and faith. What does it mean to be a beacon of hope? It means being the kind of person who chooses to love when it's easier to fear. It means telling the truth when lies surround you. It means refusing to give in to bitterness even when you've been wronged. It's not passive, it's not weak. Hope is one of the most powerful forces on earth because it dares to build when everything else is breaking down. When nations lash out, when anger is traded like currency, when peace seems a distant dream, that's when the world needs someone to believe again. Not in fantasy, not in some naive idealism, but in the deep and steady truth that peace is still possible, that reconciliation is still worth fighting for, that we are more than the worst things we have done to each other, that we are not doomed to repeat history if we have the courage to write a new chapter. Hope does not ignore reality, it transforms it. It lifts our eyes beyond what is and calls us toward what could be. It doesn't deny that there is evil in the world. It simply refuses to let that evil have the final word. And this hope, this unshakable conviction, is not reserved for the famous or the powerful. It is born in the quiet hearts of people who still believe in the good. In times like these, you might ask, what can I do? The answer is simpler than you think. You can start by being a force for peace in your own world. Speak kindly, forgive quickly, listen patiently, stand for truth, refuse to spread hate, be the one who walks in love when others walk away. Every act of light pushes back the dark, and though it may not make the evening news, it is seen it matters. The world will always have its battles, but whether it has hope is up to us. It is built by those who refuse to let fear win. And you, even in your quiet moments, even in your private decisions, hold more power than you know. So rise, be the light. Be the one who holds the line when others fall back. Because the future is shaped not by those who curse the darkness, but by those who light a candle and carry it forward. Even when the night seems long, hope is the first sign of morning. And right now, more than ever, the world needs to see the dawn breaking in you. In the face of turmoil between nations like Israel and Iran, and in the wake of mounting fear and mistrust, the world stands at a crossroads, not just politically, but spiritually. The path forward is not merely shaped by military precision or diplomatic talks, but by the condition of the human heart. These reflections remind us that beyond the bombs and boundaries there lies a deeper truth. Every conflict is a mirror reflecting our own inner war between fear and faith, anger and grace. We have learned to harness unimaginable power through science and strategy, yet remain unskilled in the higher art of peace, the kind of peace that begins not on battlefields, but within each soul. While nations may try to dismantle threats from the outside, we are called to disarm the threats that reside within: hate, pride, division, and despair. That work is not reserved for governments. It belongs to each one of us. Peace is not the responsibility of a few elite decision makers. It is the calling of every person who dares to love in a broken world. We must rise as beacons of hope, not only when the future is clear, but especially when it is clouded. Let us remember that real strength is not shown in how fiercely we strike, but in how faithfully we stand for truth, compassion, and reconciliation. The answer to the world's chaos will not come solely from the top down. It must come from within us. When we choose to live with courage, forgive with conviction, and walk in peace when war seems inevitable, we carry forward a light that cannot be extinguished. This is our time to lead, not with weapons, but with wisdom, not with fear, but with faith, not with despair, but with hope. And in doing so, we may yet witness the greatest victory of all, the triumph of the human spirit over the storms of the world. Thank you for watching.